Thank you, Mary, and hi, everybody. In the Lone Star State, most of you, I assume, are. A couple maybe in Washington, talking to you from the Empire State. So we did this national poll. Marist did, and we conducted from March 18th to March 21st. We interviewed 1,227 adults in Texas, and the data is available. And the release as well. If you want to dive into the methodology a little bit more, the error margin is plus or minus 3.6%. And I want to go through some of the information that we compiled. This is our first poll of Texas during this election cycle. We've been doing several previous election cycles, presidential and other, in the past, and now we're going to dip into the 2024 arena. So basically, looking at the main finding as far as the presidential race is concerned, then we'll talk a little bit about the Senate race. But as far as the presidential race is concerned, I think the bottom line here, or the top line, is that any hopes that Joe Biden had of turning Texas into a purple state for this second largest electoral prize in this election cycle haven't really materialized yet. So when we look at the numbers, we see that Donald Trump has a double-digit lead among the entire registered pool. That does shrink to 7 points from 11 when you look at those who are definitely going to vote. And I'll talk a little bit later about what the dynamic is driving that. But the main reason that Donald Trump is doing as well in Texas right now as he is first of all, it's a state that he has carried, obviously, in the past. But among independents, there's been a 21-point swing. So whereas Joe Biden was up 6 among independents in 2020, in this poll he trails by 15 points, making it a 21-point swing. We also saw a significant change among people who are 18 to 29. This is not unique to Texas. We're seeing this in other states as well. But whereas Joe Biden carried younger folks by 17 points last time, he now trails in this poll by 14, making this a 31-point swing among that group. Similarly, when you look at people of color, so African Americans, Biden had 90% in the exit polls a couple years, 4 years back, 2020, and that's just gone to 64, and there's been a double-digit drop as well among Hispanic Latino voters. That is, as far as the presidential is the key findings, I think, clearly slippage from 4 years ago. And that was when Joe Biden didn't have enough, lost it by, I believe it was around 5.5 points. Then, so obviously he's lost ground among key groups that he had good support with nationally and better in Texas than he has right now. Part of it is because his favorable unfavorable is pretty significantly upside down at 37 and 55 negative. Donald Trump is about even in terms of his favorable and unfavorables. People do not necessarily see Joe Biden as more fit to be president. I thought that one interesting sidebar in this was that on the question of presidential immunity for Donald Trump, 30% of the Republicans do not think he should be granted immunity. So there are dynamics in this down the road that need to be taken into account depending on what happens on a legal way with Donald Trump. I would say that in the beginning I mentioned that the definite votes a little bit tighter than among the 11-point spread that we're seeing among registered voters. And this probably gives Joe Biden a glimmer of hope in the numbers, in that the folks who dislike both of them, both Biden and Trump, Biden carries by 21 points. Among Latino voters, he carries in the definite category, there's a movement of 10 points on that. On the younger people, there's also a 10-point movement in his direction. I think I mentioned that the people who dislike both, we carried by 21 points. I think the better way of putting that was that there's a 21-point change in that, as there is in Generation Z millennial poll, that's 10 points. So there are numbers in Donald Trump's support that are softer when you look at a definite voter pool. Want to say a couple things about the Senate race, which obviously is a situation where the Democrats are looking desperately to find places that they may offset losses that are likely to occur in places like West Virginia and maybe elsewhere, and still find a way to hold the majority in the Senate. Right now, in these numbers, we're seeing a 6-point lead for Ted Cruz over Allred. And I think that a big dynamic in that is that Allred is largely unknown. 53% do not have enough opinion on Allred enough knowledge on him to have an opinion, to voice an opinion. There's a wide gender gap in this race, with Cruz carrying by 21 points and Allred carrying women, Cruz carrying men, Allred carrying women by 8 points. But I think the dynamic here is a lead for Ted Cruz, 6 points. It is a lead. It's not something that could not necessarily tighten in the course of the campaign. I think that the fact that so many people don't know enough about Allred at this point to voice an opinion is a telling number when we're looking at the dynamics underlying that race. Having said that, and I should add also that Allred has a low negative among those who do have an opinion on him. So he's still a candidate that needs to be defined both favorably and unfavorably, and I'm sure both camps are well aware of that. Anyway, so I will pause there. We'll be back into Texas as the campaign continues, but this is our first look for this cycle, and will provide a basis for comparison going forward. So there is where we are at the moment, and I'm happy to take any questions that you might have.